everybody. Welcome along to episode 105 of Percussion Discussion. First of all, I'd like to wish you all a very happy new year. Let's hope it's a good one for all of us. Please check out our social media. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and of course our world famous YouTube channel, where you can watch the videos as well as listen to them. So please subscribe. Only takes a second. You won't miss any of the great content that we have coming your way. If you'd rather listen on the go, then all of our conversations are available in podcast form. These are free to download from your favorite podcast provider. If you could please write a review and rate us as well, it really helps other drummers find us, and hopefully they can enjoy it as well. So it only takes a second, and I'd really appreciate it. Thank you. Today's episode, this one is really close to my heart. I've been wanting to do it for quite a long time. I started off playing drums and percussion in brass bands. This has given me the ability to read confidently, and most of the gigs I do today are reading. So I think it's an important one to give young up and coming drummers and percussionists somewhere to play, where they're in a section and where they're working with a musical director. So I thought, where do we go? So I've got a couple of friends who play for the #1 ranked brass band in the world, the Cory Band from down in South Wales, an incredible band, chock full of talent. We're going to be hearing from the band's professional conductor, Philip Harper, partway through the interview. But for now, it gives me great pleasure to welcome two members of the percussion section who've been in the band for a long time, Steve Jones and Ali Woodman. So Ali, Steve, thank you so much for doing this, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, great to be here. Thanks for inviting us.
Certainly is.
Thank you. And it's the first it'll be the first one out in the new year. So happy new year to you both, first of all.
And you.
Thank you very much. And yeah, it's something close to my heart, brass bands. I've started off in banding. I've done more than enough of it over the years. Something I've kind of wandered away from with being busy with other things. But you guys are kind of at the pinnacle of it, and I really mean at the pinnacle, aren't you? I mean, how long have you both been in the band for starters? How long have you been in the band, Ali?
Relatively short time, really. I mean, I've only been in Cory Band since 2018 permanently. Okay. Did lots of other things before that, brass bands being one of them. Fell out of love with it. When they did the whole function band thing, the whole covers band and originals band, and then came back into it in 2018, and
Okay.
Yeah, got the bug, and here I am. Back into it.
Superb. How about you, Steve? When did you join the band?
Ran back early 2012.
Okay.
I've been playing for years, obviously before that. I knew Ali from West of England brass banding years ago. So obviously Ali hadn't come along to Cory at the same time as me. So I never thought I was going to see him again. So for him to come along to Cory was a really nice surprise, and it's great to have him here. And not just on a playing level, but on many other levels as well.
Yeah, that's amazing. I mean, that's the thing with brass bands. Friends are made for life, aren't they? Let's be honest, because you spend that much time together, not just traveling, rehearsing, but afterwards having a drink, maybe or two. I don't know. That's for
What's
my.
that?
There's never time for that.
No, but but it's one of those things, brass banding, once you get into it, and a lot of people watching and listening to this won't have had anything to do with banding. They'll know very little about it. But it gets in your blood, doesn't it? Even though now I don't actually play in a band, I still get asked to do lots of work, depping here and there, and I just don't have the time. But nothing stirs me like hearing a band as yours, and it's just like, oh, listen to that. It gets in your blood, doesn't it? Have you always done brass bands, Ali?
I started off certainly that way back in the 80s. So I started when I was 12. I'm 52 now. I know I don't look it, Matt, but I started off in my local town band, Thornbury Town Band, junior band. They're no longer a band anymore, and then progressed to senior band, did the whole contest thing, and then played with a band called Sun Life Band in the west of England, who were a really top outfit for 10 years as their principal percussionist. I guess brass banding is in my blood, but certainly brass banding was not what sort of drew me into being a drummer or percussionist. Far from it. The thing that drew me into that was Adam and the Ants, believe it or not, Kings of the Wild Frontier. If you remember that?
Yes, Chris Merrick Hughes.
Yep, my first album, two drummers at the school disco, and there was me drumming on the chairs, and then we had a teacher at school who taught drums, and sort of caught me doing that in a corner, and next thing I knew, I was having drum lessons, and and the rest is history.
Amazing. And how about you, Steve? Similar story?
Yeah, started out as a sort of, I don't know, must have been about 8 or 9 years old, in a local village band, Bream Silver, in the Royal Forest of Dean. I sort of progressed from there to a band called Culford Town Band, who were no longer in existence. In fact, they're now called Forest of Dean Brass. Mm-hmm. They amalgamated with another band. So I started off with those. I was only there for about 5 years doing those two bands, and then I got an invite to join Flowers. Well, I believe they were known as Flowers Gloucester band then, but in Gloucester, sort of around about 1989-ish. Stayed there for 21 years.
Wow.
Did my apprenticeship, I suppose you could call it. It was quite a long one, and then moved to went to Tredegar for a year, and then I moved over to Cory in 2012, and I haven't looked back since. It's been a really, really good opportunity, and something I've grasped with both hands.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the accolades that the band has, it's incredible. I mean, I think you shared on your Facebook about the stats from last year, and it was ridiculous the amount of things that the band have achieved in a year. You know, it brings me to my next point. This commitment at this level must be pretty serious, I'm guessing. You know, you can't. I'm sure Philip Harper, your professional conductor, doesn't like people missing rehearsals and things like that. I mean, what's the commitment like at this level? Tell me. I don't mind which of you answers the question, or both of you, whichever.
Ali?
Well, it's all or nothing. You know, you're either in it 100%, or you're in another band. It's as simple as that. You know, to be an elite in elite music or sport, it requires a huge commitment. Not just the rehearsals, but obviously the gigs and then in between, because rehearsal time for us is not the time spent for people trying to play their parts. You do that at home. Rehearsals are about pulling together the music. So yeah, I mean, I personally travel 55 miles, 110 miles a round trip, twice a week, sometimes every night of the week if we're building up to a competition, and then there's all the gigs to go with it as well. So yeah, I mean, the commitment just can't be understated, but the rewards just tours to what we've done this year, Korea, Austria, France, playing in venues that some musicians could only dream of, and you only get those opportunities through putting in the commitment. So yeah, for me, it's all or nothing, and the day I can't do that will be the day I don't play with Cory, and I'm sure it's the same for the rest of the musicians in the band.
Yeah, it's I guess it limits work aside what else you can do. I'm guessing musically you can't really commit to anything else apart from Cory Band. Steve, would you say that's a fair thing to say? Yeah.
Oh, definitely. I mean, there are times I think to myself, I'd love to have a go at playing in any sort of rock bands or function bands or jazz. And I'd love, you do very often think to yourself, I'd love to do all that again. But you just don't. The trouble is, it's like a drug. And you think, well, I'll do one more year or 2 more years. And then the next thing you know, you're down the line 2 years and you're starting the next year off. And you think, I'm going to look forward to that. That's a good gig. So you end up staying. Excuse me. So, yeah, as Ali said, it is a commitment that you're either in or you're not. Simple as that. And the amount of things that you tend to miss out on because of that commitment is astronomical.
Yeah,
but that's the only reason you get to where you are, and that's the reason we stay at the top.
Yeah, and I'm sure it's not just like events and things. There must be family things you miss out on as well. Because let's be honest, when a date goes in the diary, you can't go, oh, well, do you know what? I've got this. I'm going out for an 18th or something. You can't do that, can you? You got to, you just got to.
Absolutely not. No, absolutely not. Definitely not. So you do miss out on some things, but the rewards you gain in the long run And over the years, when you look back on what we have done with the band, it's a nice feeling.
Oh, it's just the rise that the band has seen for the last however many years is just phenomenal. And anybody who's lucky enough to have seen them, you can watch all the YouTube videos and Facebook videos, but there's nothing like sitting in front of that band when you hear them full tilt, and it's just like, oh my God, it's just an incredible thing. One that you probably, you never get it the same when you're actually as part of the band, do you? But when you're sat out in the audience, it's like, wow, check that out. Yeah,
very true.
I mean, obviously, I'm speaking to two of you at the moment, but I know it's not unusual to have 5 or 6 registered percussionists in your section. Is that a similar story for yourself?
Yeah, we have 4 permanent players at the moment.
Yeah,
we've run as many as 5 permanent players, but we have 4 permanent players, and most competitions, especially the European competitions, you need five players. We have Matt Roach and Graham Law, who are part of the team as well. Modern brass bands, especially we play a lot of music that Philip Harper writes and arranges. And the percussion requirements are huge. Just monstrous, really. We're lucky to have 4 dedicated permanent players. Some bands struggle to find anyone, but we're in a good position there. I think some pieces, Steve, probably 6 players, 2 timp players, things like that, haven't we, for the Euros? Crazy amounts of gear. I was going to say, when the Europeans
sort of approach, you sort of go in with your hands over your eyes, thinking, "Oh, how many perks are we going to need for this, or what instrumentation we're going to need?"
Yeah, how many water gongs and dustbins are we're going to need? Yeah, that type of thing.
I mean, at that level, because let's be honest, the music that you're playing would stretch any professional percussionist. It's not, for anybody listening thinking, oh, it can't be that difficult. I've played a lot of championship test pieces, and I've gone, oh yeah, this is, it's not gentle sight reading, is it? Let's be honest. There's a huge amount of commitment that goes into it. Is it difficult to find suitable percussionists when you need an extra 2, maybe even 3? Are they hard to find, or do you have to kind of go into the colleges looking for them, or is it just somebody you know? How does that tend to work?
Cool. Well, I think that we're very lucky that we've had a full complement of players for many years now. So for us as a band, it's not too bad. You still have to hunt them down and try and find them from somewhere. But I think because of the status of the band, people do want to come and play for you. I think if you're in other championship section bands or the lower echelons of that, and even lower still, first section, second section banding, it is an absolute. It's a problem, and they're like hen's teeth.
Yeah,
there aren't many, and the problem we've got is that a lot of, especially the youngsters, a lot of them don't really want to play in brass bands. It is a huge problem in that respect. They want to go off and probably do paid gigs with orchestras or other different genres of music. You can't blame them. Brass bands aren't that fashionable, but we're very lucky in that respect. But yeah, there's not a great pool of players to choose from.
No, I think if you dangle a tour in front of someone or an appearance at the Albert Hall, then it's probably more easy to attract people. And we're lucky because a lot of our gigs, are at that sort of level. But yeah, as Steve said, in the lower echelons of banding, do the youngsters want to go and drag a drum kit to the local park on a rainy Sunday afternoon? Probably not, to be honest. We've both done that, Steve, haven't we? I'm sure you have as well.
I still do it.
But there's so many more opportunities for the kids nowadays. Most of them just want to sit on a drum kit, don't they, and bash along to the Foo Fighters or something like that.
We're old school, Al. We're old school.
Yeah.
That's the thing.
We don't have a life.
But reading is one of those skills which, I'll be honest, when I started, I told my dad I wanted to play drums, and he just rolled his eyes and went. And my dad is was a brass bander. He was the solo euphonium with Point of Air Colliery Band and North, but in their heyday. He doesn't play anymore, but And he said, oh, no, if you want to play drums, you learn to read and be in the band. I said, oh, no, it's not for me. And you know what? Every day I'm grateful that he made me do it. I've done gigs that I couldn't dream of doing if I hadn't had the reading skills, the ability to work with a conductor. And it is. And that's why I'm doing this. I want to kind of spread awareness of banding and what it can give to you, because it gives a lot back, doesn't it? You put a lot in, but it does give a lot back.
Oh, massively. I mean, I've just look at the last 4 years. I mean, okay, massive disruption with COVID, but if I look back to sort of 2019, the band won every major competition. We went to America, Switzerland. We played in Stravinsky Hall on Lake Geneva, won the European Championships. I mean, just incredible memories. This year we've been to South Korea. Incredible places that we travel to, incredible venues that we've played. We've been on Sky Arts, there's a series on there as well. I mean, when I look back, it's crazy, really, the amount of things we get to do. I mean, I think this year we're off to Switzerland, with Sweden, France again, big venues, the Albert Hall later in the year. So, yeah, I mean, if people stick at it and they get to the top, they're going to play gigs and venues that they would probably never play elsewhere. I've done the function band thing. I've earned good money off function bands, but you know what those gigs are like. Sometimes you're playing to no one. Sometimes you're there till 1 o'clock in the morning. All the things that go with that, even though you do earn good money. And whilst we certainly don't earn anything like that from banding, in terms of what we've been lucky enough to experience, it's crazy, really, when you look back at it for, playing percussion in a brass band.
Yeah. Well, if that's not inspiration enough for a young percussionist to want to go and do this, why not aim big? One day I'm going to play for Cory. Why not? I mean, there's plenty of other great bands out there as well in their areas. I'm not going to name them all, but there's some serious bands. So yeah, I just hope it does a little bit of good, and maybe just I don't know. It'd be nice to see more young percussionists getting involved. I think personally.
I personally, I was going to say, what I've tried to do sometimes is, if any of my pupils, excuse me, if any of my pupils come and have lessons with me here at the band rehearsal facility, I'll say, well, why don't you stay on for a little bit and have a listen, because that's how I got into it and got the drug. I remember going to listen to Sun Life in rehearsals when I was very young. Yeah. That shows how old Ali is. And but I used to sit and listen and think, I've just suddenly realised that's what I wanted to do. Yeah. And I wanted to play in a band like that. And if you can get that inspiration and get the brain ticking at an early age, you never know what you can, never know what sort of path you can lead them down.
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing it offers is, just the variety of instruments you can play. Lots of youngsters, they like playing drum kit, like me, I do as well. But, being able to play, mallet instruments and the orchestral percussion and timpani, and, there's just so much variety to keep them interested. And, we've all sat there. We call it yellow music, that music that's been around for years. It's got a bass drum and a triangle. We've recorded some of it recently, and there's not a great deal to do. But then, the other end of the scale is, you're running around like four lunatics trying to cover all the parts. But yeah, I mean, the variety's fantastic.
Yeah. And you've talked about that you've got 4 regular percussionists, and have they all been in the band for a while? Obviously, I know you guys have been for Steve in particular has been in the band. Have you been played as a section pretty steadily for a while? Is what I'm trying to say. Would you say?
Do you want me to answer that one now? Yeah. Matt is a recent acquisition to the band. He came in last summer. Graham has been in and out. Really, he's one of those players that we've used on occasion when we've needed an extra tune part or whatever.
Yeah.
But he's recently moved down from Scotland to down here, so he's now more full time as well. So up until recently, we had a very very good friend of ours called James Andrews, who's recently left the band. But I played with James back in Flowers days under Phil Harper as well. So we've been performing together almost 20 years, together really. So, it's a shame that James has now departed us, but he's been an absolute stalwart for the band and an integral part of that, an integral cog, so to speak, in the band really. So they're both relatively new full-time members then.
Sure. But do you find that you get like a telepathic thing going on between you when you're firing on all cylinders? You kind of know what each other's going to do, and
yeah. Sometimes.
Sometimes. I mean, I tend to stick to playing timpani. Really, I mean, one thing that's probably worth mentioning is, we tend to stick to the things we're best at doing. Our strengths. Steve is, but you won't mind me saying, his strength is definitely drum kit. I mean, phenomenal drum kit player, phenomenal on snare drum and all that orchestral and auxiliary percussion. But, a bit like me, when it comes to mallet percussion, it needs a lot more rehearsal, sight reading. Some of that stuff just doesn't come naturally. So we all tend to stick to those areas, stick to our strengths. And I think, it works really well in terms of the output that we get from that. Definitely. I mean, I tend to sit. I play timps a lot. Me and Steve sit next to each other, so I guess we're maybe dialed in a bit more than the other two guys who are running around the other side of the band, and they were there for marimba mallets and all those silly things.
Well, that was one thing I was going to ask. And do you have your own speciality? Obviously, I know you. Every bit of footage I've ever seen, Steve, you've been playing snare drum or drum kit, and obviously that's your thing. Do you have to have your arm pulled out of its socket to do any tuned, or are you happy to do a little bit here and there?
Oh yeah, I've only got one arm. I must admit, it was when I was at Flowers for years, I played kit because no one else could.
Right. That's
so
a good position to be in.
Stuck, very much so. But we stuck with that, stuck to our strengths there. And in some ways, it didn't work out for me very well, because I wish I had learnt more tuned percussion and timpani. I can play timpani, but it's one of those instruments, isn't it, where you've got to be playing it all the time to get to grips with it and to play it well constantly. So I've stuck to the kit all these years, and it has bothered me a bit. I wish I could do other things. I will play a bit of tuned if I'm, as I say, if you can twist my arm and I have to play it for a competition, I'll play it. But I'm not a natural on it at all, and I have to, I'm not a sight reader on tuned percussion, so I tend to just take it away, rehearse it, and get it in my head, and then it's fine then. But nothing. I don't want to play Flight of the Bumblebee or anything like that. I'm absolutely useless.
So same for you, Ali. I'm guessing. You can play other things, but you'd rather be sat.
Yeah, I mean, I guess in the past I've been a bit of an all-rounder. I've enjoyed playing it all and played a lot of tube percussion, a lot of drum kit. I mean, I guess, if there's a third tune part to be played, it's probably coming my way rather than Steve's way, if they can prize me off the timp stool. But yeah, no, I've played plenty of tube percussion. Timps is a big seat in Cory Band. Philip's expectations of that seat is very much the sort of standard of an orchestral player. That's where I sit mostly. But yeah, happy to do other things. I mean, a couple of years ago, we played a piece at the Europeans. It was called Dear Cassandra. You remember that one, Steve? And I remember
the name.
Yeah, I think at one point there was 5 tuned percussion parts going on. So marimba, xylophone, vibes, glock, tubular bells, and really difficult parts. So there's no escaping it sometimes. You just got to roll up your sleeves and get on with it.
That fills me with dread. I mean, I'm in Steve's camp. It was literally parrot fashion for tuned for me. I'd have to learn it so I could just, if I had to look at something else whilst reading, it was like, no, it's not going to work. So
I'm with you there, brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I always say I'm a drummer, not a percussionist. That's my thing. I would never put the percussion word after my name, apart from the podcast, of course. But there we are. Now let's talk equipment, because we all know in lower section bands, and for those again watching and listening who perhaps don't know a lot about brass bands, it's very similar tiering system to the football, isn't it? We got the Premier League, so I guess that you'd be I know you're a Tottenham fan, Steve. But you'd be kind of Manchester City, wouldn't you? As you know, you'd.
Well, at the moment, Arsenal.
Yeah, but you've won everything a million times, so apart from the Champions League. So but you get what I'm saying, and then you get your bands all the way down to I don't know, your local football team. That's standard. Totally forgot where I was going with it, but that was it. Yeah, so we know at a lower level. Not only is there a lack of drummers and percussionists for the bands, but equipment is generally a little bit sketchy in those lower sections, isn't it? You might get a drum kit of some sort and very little else. So it's but the equipment that you must have in your space must be absolutely phenomenal, because you need to be able to rehearse these huge pieces. So you must have quite an array of gear there.
Yeah. We've got pretty much double of everything apart from tubular bells and marimba.
Yeah.
So the majority of gear that we use for rehearsal stays in the rehearsal space, and then we've got obviously a concert set that goes out onto the van for gigs. But we're extremely lucky to have the backing of Majestic Percussion with all our gear. So it's good stuff. It's not the stuff you find in the lower sections. Although saying that, a lot of lower section bands these days, some of them are getting some good gear in.
Yeah.
So it is different compared to what it was, say, back in the 1980s or so.
Yeah.
But we're very lucky in that respect. Very, very lucky indeed. Obviously lucky enough to have your own rehearsal space, but not to have to put any gear down as well, which is an absolute nightmare when you're trying to drag gear out onto the van amongst 28 other brass bands people trying to get the same door.
Of course.
So we are very lucky with that respect. But the amount of gear is the same as pretty much akin to what you would find in a pro orchestra, really. Yeah.
Absolutely. And so you don't have the task I used to despise was doing a concert and then having to reset the equipment again for the next rehearsal. You don't have that issue then. You just turn up and carry on as normal.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We're very lucky from that point of view, aren't we? We have to move a few things around here and there, but generally speaking, we've got two of everything, 2 sets of timps, 2 vibes, 2 xylophones. The room that you can see Steve in now is we've got a little percussion storeroom studio that's full of gear. I've never seen so much gear. I don't know how many drum kits we've got. 3, 4, 5. I don't know the last count. A lot of stuff. I mean, what I would say actually is, I've got connection with lower section bands through family and friends, and I think over the last sort of more recent years, especially with things like lottery grants and things like that, I think bands have invested in their percussion gear a lot more than they used to. I mean, I remember when I first started off, and I think trying to get the band to buy a xylophone, was impossible. But you go into a lot of band rooms now and they've got pretty decent gear, and they're all using Adams and Majestic gear, most of them, some Premier stuff. But maybe apart from a marimba, most bands have got sort of timps, Glock, drum kit, xylophone, tubular bells, tam-tam. Pretty well done for. But the test pieces call for it. It may be the 4th section and the parts might not be as demanding, but the instrumentation can be quite demanding for these bands. I mean, certainly this year for the sort of area contest, as we call them, the qualifying contest for the finals, the percussion requirements in some of those sections really, really difficult. Yeah, really difficult. But yeah, we're very lucky. Can't grumble.
Well, I mean, let's talk contesting. For obviously, every band in the same section plays the same piece, and it's judged usually from inside a closed space, isn't it? Where the adjudicator can't see the band. Now, for the brass players, this isn't quite as stressful because they walk on the stage with the instrument that they've owned from whenever they bought it or where they were given it. So they walk on with everything that's super familiar. Now, the percussionists, however many there may be, you walk on with a bag of sticks and your music, don't you? So thankfully, the gear that's provided these days is a whole lot different to the gear that used to be provided in the dark old days of the 90s. But even so, it's still a stressful thing, isn't it? Having to go on and work out, how does this work? How does it differ from what we have? Pedals and, some tubular bells, you have to have the pedal down so they ring. Some it's the, so how do you find that? Is that still as stressful when you play for the number one ranked band in the world?
I think with experience, you tend not to worry too much nowadays. Well, for me anyway, you tend to get to know some of the gear that's being provided for you with these different competitions and things. But I think when it's first started, when brass banding contests first started having gear supplied, yes, it was pretty stressful because you may be playing on a completely different snare drum, whether you don't know what the reaction's going, or what sort of reaction you're going to get from it, whether it's going to make a noise when you pull the snare on. With the timpani, I suppose, Ali can speak more for me for the timpani side of things, but again, you don't know if you're going to get balance action or clutch pedals. It's the uncertainty really of not knowing what's going to be on stage, and a lot of bands. I did some work for events a few years ago, and I still do it every now and again. Events of Newport. They're one of the main suppliers of brass band competitions, and I would stand backstage with some of these percussionists coming on from, say, the second and third section bands, and they would, some of them would be shaking because they didn't know what on earth they were going to be presented with when they got on stage. It was only until they, sort of got like a rabbit in the headlights on stage, and there's the adjudicators box, and there's the audience, and there's your percussion, which you've never played on before. And it can be quite a daunting experience for a lot of them, which I did feel for them, So I have seen that side of things. But I think as time has gone on, for me personally, and I'm sure I speak for Ali as well, you tend to get used to what you're going to be supplied with. So it's not so much of a shock when you get on stage and play it.
Sure. So, I mean, Ali, as far as timps go, that there are a few different pedal types, aren't there, for tuning? And the balanced one I struggle with a little bit. Have you? I mean, obviously, if it's a pretty full-on test piece and you need to make a lot of changes, you need to adapt quickly, don't you? Let's be honest.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things in the past that, it used to really play on my mind. The advice I try to give to any percussionist now is just try to put it to the back of your mind, because it really will ruin your whole experience when you get on stage. And as Steve said, I've seen many percussionists who, very capable, and they get destroyed by having to go and play unfamiliar instruments. But yeah, I mean, timpani. I'll just give an example of this year, or last year. So we use Majestic clutch action symphonic timpani in the band room, where the gauges, traditional gauges, they're in the middle where you can see them. We have a set of, we call them travel timps, but these are our gigging timps, which are I think Bergerot, and the again they're clutch action, but the tuning gauges are down here by your thighs, or at the front of the drums. So there's a difference straight away. And then we'll go and play the Royal Albert Hall. There'll be Premier Elite timpani. So again, they're balance action, very, very stiff pedals. And when we play at the Europeans, that's sponsored by Yamaha, so they provide balance action. So I think last year we played, what was the piece we played? No Man's Land, wasn't it, Steve? Really, really tough timp part. Probably one of the most difficult timp parts I've played. We had a big, sort of 30, 40 bar solo, just 3 percussionists playing, and they were balance action. So, for 2 months before you're practicing on a set of timps with clutch action, suddenly you get on stage, you're faced with balance action with glissandos as well. So yeah, and potentially, and I've come across this a lot of times, I will always try to play on the biggest drums, on the drums where they just the notes sound the best. You get on stage, perhaps those drums have not got the range. Certainly the Albert Hall last year, another percussionist had warned me before I went on stage about the range of the drums, and I had to get on there with the tuning key and crank them all up on stage while the band was setting the stage, because they wouldn't go up to the notes I wanted them to. So maybe some examples of some of the sort of real life experiences, but ultimately you just got to try and put that to the back of your mind. But young percussionist, if you put balance action timpani in front of a 99% of brass band percussionists, they're not going to have a clue how to use them. They're just not the sort of drums they go and buy. They're all using clutch action.
Yeah.
So that's really, really, really difficult. And again, with some of the tuned instruments, I mean, some of them will never have played a vibraphone till the day. They will practice on a glockenspiel, and then suddenly there they are with a vibraphone the size of a snooker table in front of them. So, it's a challenge.
Yeah. Let's just hope they don't bring glockenspiel mallets, because that's not going to be great, is it? and that's the thing. I mean, the money you need to invest in mallets and good ones is it's quite important, isn't it? Like, I mean, my timpani playing used to be of an okay level. I haven't done it for a long time, but I invested in some expensive timp mallets. I bought some David Morby stuff. Others are available, and you know what? They make the worst timp sound great, and they're just good quality things. But you need so much, don't you, as a young percussionist? Different mallets, different sticks, different triangle beaters. But I used to love buying all that stuff, and I'm sure it's the same for you guys. You've probably got tons of it.
Oh, I've got a bag full of sticks, David Morby sticks, Roft mallets, Angelini mallets, a lot of different timpani sticks. A lot of players will go for the basics, the Paul Chalklins and the Sean Hooper mallets. But, my advice is if you want to get serious, then invest some money. But I think Sean Hooper mallets are over £100 a pair now. It's serious money. Yeah. You can get a lot of drumsticks for that, can't you, Steve? That's why he sticks to drum kit. He's a cheapskate.
Oh yeah, simple life, me.
Turns up with a pair of sticks in his back pocket. He's good to go.
That's it.
Oh, but I mean, let's talk. What does this offer to a youngster? I mean, what advice could you give to any young drummer percussionist wanting to start now? What's some pearls of wisdom you could give to them? I mean, you're playing at the highest level that's available in brass banding. So, let's hope they take this on board and take it away. And in the next 10 or 15 years, it'd be nice to see them where you are now. That's what I'd like to see anyway.
So would we.
Yeah.
Because there aren't many coming through. So it would be nice to see a lot more youngsters. Obviously there are youngsters coming through, but not enough. So if we can inspire one or two kids, if they come to a concert of ours and we can inspire one or two kids with the sound of the band and all the technicalities that go with all the percussion and everything, then our job is done, isn't it, really? I think that, the advice I would give to any is just listen to as much music as you can and go and watch live bands as well, whether that's in a pub somewhere or local festivals, and try and listen to different genres of music as well. I was I think when I was younger, I listened to brass banding, quite a bit of a geek. I had lots of tapes and things of brass bands, but I tended to shelter myself away from other things and other genres, and I wish I'd done that from an earlier age now. So I think it's important that that the young kids who want to start playing drums or percussion, it's important that you listen to all the different genres and pick up as much as they can, really.
Sure.
Yeah, and I think it's important that they actually go and play in other organisations as well. I mean, I think you can get a bit hooked into just, brass bands. We know they play very straight. A lot of drummers want to play jazz music and pop music, and that can be really fun in brass bands. But in all honesty, I think it's probably more fun playing that in a big band or a pop band. But that's not to say bands are getting better at that sort of stuff. I mean, my message would be, look, get off your Xbox, go and do something useful in your life, something enjoyable that's going to, connect you with people, that's going to take you, it's going to create friendships for years, it's going to take you to places that you're never likely to get from, sat in your bedroom on whatever it is they play all day. I'm sounding really old, aren't I? But, I've got two boys who are grown up now, and despite the fact we've always had drums in the house, have never taken an interest in it at all, which is a shame. But there's great opportunities for kids if they want to get into it, no doubt about it. You need to learn music to be able to read music. That's an absolute dead cert in a brass band. But we've been all over the place. You've been to Australia twice, I think, Steve, haven't you, with brass bands?
I think three times. Yeah,
So,
fantastic. And that's the other thing as well, is trying to actually get the youngsters to understand what they could achieve and what they can look forward to as at an older age as well. And hopefully that kind of thing can sort of instill a bit of belief in them, thinking, yeah, I can do that, and I want to be able to do this, and if they can do it, I can do it.
Yeah. And I guess a mistake that I made, and I wish I could go back and redo it, and that's learning some tuned, because I'd like to have been, rather than just, he's all right as a drummer, but I'd like to be able to, I can play that tune part. And I really wish now, in hindsight, that I'd made the effort, and gone and done it, because it opens more doors again, doesn't it? Because most brass bands always need tune players. They usually have somebody who can get by on kit. Tuned is kind of the thing that's going to get you in, isn't it, these days? Would you agree with that, Ali?
Yeah, for certain. And I think the other thing is, if you're going to go to college, then, you've got to be a strong tune player. But yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think the people shy away from it because I think it's probably the more difficult element of the sort of percussion section is tune percussion. And the other thing is, you can go and buy a drum kit. I've got one here. Electronic drum kit makes no noise. Your parents aren't going to complain about that. Go and buy a marimba and see what see what that costs you and what space you need. And then you need a vibraphone on top. So having accessibility to those instruments is really difficult. And you can go and buy a drum kit for next to nothing, or a second-hand electronic drum kit for a few £100 and off you go. So you can sort of understand why a lot of the youngsters go down that route. But I would agree with you. I mean, I wish I'd spent more time on tune percussion when I was younger. Yeah, definitely. I suppose as well, if you've got any aspirations of being a soloist, then that's probably where it lies. Although Steve does a few kit solos here and there. He doesn't enjoy doing it, do you?
I hate drum solos. Hate them.
I'm the same. I think there's lots of drummers that are the same. But let's talk. I mean, you're very lucky. You have an incredible conductor, with Philip Harper, who understands percussion. He does some incredible arrangements and some great original pieces. Must be really nice having somebody like that at the helm, who understands it all and has. Let's be honest, has a crystal clear beat. When you're watching him, I think you'd have to be some kind of idiot not to follow that beat. I don't know. Let's talk about Phil for a minute. I don't mind who goes.
Well, I mean, yeah, but I've known Phil. Well, I mean, we've both known Phil for many years.
Yeah.
I started working with Phil back about 22, 23 years ago now, at Flowers. So we've spent a good 8 or 9, 10 years together there. So we've got a bit of an understanding really as to what is required when in a performance or whatever. So I will follow him and he follows me. And if he writes any drum parts out for any pieces he's composed, he would generally just write a broad sort of average sort of drum groove, whatever he wants on it. But he'll just let me get on with it. And then nowadays, I tend to just, first glance at the music, I will play as written. And then when I get used to it, and he doesn't mind me, I just add my own thing in. Many conductors don't like that.
Oh, yeah.
In brass banding. Yeah. It's a shame because actually, the more you add into it, you can lift the music off the page. Yeah. But very lucky again to have Phil at the helm who lets me do that kind of thing. Yeah. So we've got a good understanding.
Yeah, and obviously the other instruments, tuned and timps, don't have that luxury to be able to, add your own spice. You kind of need to play what's on the copy at that point, don't you?
Yeah, absolutely. Having said that, though, I mean, if Philip's arranged it or written it, sometimes, maybe some of the timp parts he's written, can be a bit too difficult for one player. He's always open to making that slightly easier, making amendments. But he understands percussion section so well. I mean, I don't think I've come across another musical director who's not a percussionist that's got such a good understanding. But he takes a real interest in the sounds. And one of the things we've done before a contest, so the sections of the band will have generally a section where just they will turn up and they will go through their parts. I mean, I remember we had one where we had a pre-sectional sectional. So this was a sectional to just talk about the sounds that he wanted. It was on a piece called Explorers on the Moon. for the Europeans. And all we did for an hour and a half was talk around the sounds, experiment with the sounds that he wanted. This was not for us to get our parts right, because we couldn't even play them then. But that's the level of detail that he went into on that. And then a couple of weeks down the line, when we actually had a chance to learn our parts, we'd have a percussion sectional. But that's Philip all over. I mean, he'll never just say, "Oh, can you use some harder sticks or softer sticks?" He knows that winds us up. He really knows that winds us up. So he'll encourage us to come up with solutions. So, he will say, "This is the sound I'm looking for. What do you think? What would you advise?" So, it's a great sort of collaborative approach he's got towards the percussion section. And the other thing I would say, especially with drum kit, is Phil loves the kit to be up front. And I've got this real hate with brass bands where the musical director's got the kit player at the back tapping the hi-hat with knitting needles, sort of, and playing so quietly that drum kits don't sound like drum kits when they're played like that, do they? They need to be played. Cymbals need to be hit. Tom-toms need to be hit. Phil understands that. So if you listen to Cory Band and you listen to Steve on drum kit, for me, you hear a proper kit sound, a proper kit player. Especially on any of the big band or the pop or the jazz stuff, it's really sort of kit led, and that all comes from Philip, because I know Steve, myself, could go and sit in another band and we'd all be told, take that down, take that back. So I don't think I can sort of really overemphasize his influence on our section and the way we sound as well. He's phenomenal.
We have pretty much a free rein on a lot of things, really, which is good. I mean, I don't want to sound like an ordinary, or I don't want the band to sound like an ordinary brass band, and I don't want to sound like an ordinary brass band drummer. For me, it's got to sound of the ilk of something like the BBC Concert Orchestra. Yeah, it's got to have that big presence about it, and the big showbiz glitzy sound. Otherwise, you may as well just play what's on the part. Yeah, a lot of people do that in banding. They will play exactly what's on the part, and it just sounds brass bandy. And I've never wanted that.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Well, look, speaking of Phil, let's. I'm very lucky to have spoken to Phil about this. So let's cut through to Philip Harper. Here we go. We'll be back. Don't go anywhere. So here we go with Phil. Phil, thank you so much for doing this. Really appreciate it.
Good to be here.
Well, it's very kind of you. And we've been having a great conversation with two of your fantastic percussionists, with Steve and Ali. And we thought it'd be great to get you involved as well. Obviously, you're the professional conductor of the Cory Band, but also you do an awful lot of composition as well. And I'd like to just ask about that. I mean, when it comes to composition for percussion, is it something you enjoy doing? Do you really get into it? The percussion.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I, as you said, I'm the musical director of the Cory Band, so I'm in a very, very privileged position as a composer, in as much as whatever I compose, I can usually, press print on the printer, print out the copies, and take it to the band, that very evening sometimes. And of course, when you take it to a band, what you're very aware of straight away is that this is not some kind of abstract exercise, but there are human beings playing your parts. And so that's obviously what is at the forefront of my mind, not obviously for brass instruments as well in the band, but for percussion, they have the added kind of stress of having to move from instrument to instrument. So there's all the kind of practicalities to consider as well when composing for percussion. Yeah, but mainly my approach is to compose for the human beings that are going to be playing it.
Sure. So obviously, when you've written a piece, would you take it to band and just see how it works, how it feels, if it sounds like you wanted to? And are you open to change things if you think it's not quite where it should be?
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, I mean, I'm a brass player. I'm a horn player, or I was in a previous life. I'm not trained in percussion. I mean, I know my way around, and as a composer now, I've been doing it for several decades. Obviously, I have a rough idea of what works and what doesn't work. But when you're composing something which is kind of more complex or more sophisticated, or you want a particular effect, then again, another advantage of my kind of dual composer-conductor role is I can take that to the band then and say, before we run the whole piece through, I just take the percussion parts and say to one of the guys, can you do this for me? What does this sound like? And then have a little session with them on their own. What happens if you pedal here rather than here on the vibraphone, or what happens if you use these sticks or those sticks? And that kind of informs what goes into the score eventually as well. Like I say, I'm in a very privileged position to be able to do that.
Yeah, it must be a thrill to be able to just turn up and say, right, let's see how this sounds. Does it work? Can you, as you said, there's logistics. You're not just sitting on your chair with your instrument. It's pretty frantic at the back of the band there, isn't it? Trying to get from one thing to another, and there's all that, I suppose, to take into consideration.
Yeah, there is as well, and also, of course, each of the individual players have different specialisms, really. So just making sure that they get on the right instruments where they can show their particular personal skills off to the best. So yeah, it's all one big juggling act, really.
Well, no, you've written some pretty challenging music for both brass and percussion, and it would be nice to have a little listen. I believe we've got a clip lined up. Would you like to introduce it to us, Phil, please?
Yeah, this is a piece which I composed for the band back in 2019. Remember that pre-COVID time? Yes. And we took it to the European Championships in Montreux in Switzerland, where we became European champions playing this piece. So it's called Explorers on the Moon, and it's based on a Tintin story of the same name. I don't know if you know the Belgian cartoon detective. Yeah. Yeah, I think I wrote 4 or 5 parts for that one, and used a hell of a lot of instruments. I think we needed a very big van for that weekend. But we got the usual stuff like the timps and tune percussion, the xylophone, the vibraphone. But I also used a whole when they go to the moon in the middle part, it's a very alien landscape. So I used all kinds of other instruments like the bowed crotales. We used water gong as well, and a few kind of quite unusual instruments which were there to produce just those special effects.
Yeah. Amazing. So, well, let's have a listen and enjoy, everybody, if you're watching or listening on the podcast. So here we go. So there we go, a mighty impressive display from the Cory Band, and I hope the brass players aren't listening, especially the fabulous percussion section. There we go. Don't tell the brass players I said that, Phil. Excellent, incredible stuff. Now, obviously, I love percussion. You're a brass player, or you were, as you said. Do you think these days that percussion is equal to brass in the scene, or is there still a little bit of needle here and there?
Well, I mean, yeah, they're different families of instruments, but I don't think anyone would say that the percussion were just, an additional kind of optional extra these days. I think those days are long gone. But obviously, it's been an interesting journey with percussion because, of course, when most people think of a brass band, they might think of, a band marching along the road, traditionally. And of course, for that particular form of outdoor music making, the percussion are absolutely vital. But strangely, for many years, decades, in fact, at our major competitions taking place in concert halls, sitting on stages, percussion wasn't even allowed for years and years and years, which is just incredible, really. So 1969 was the first time percussion was actually allowed on stage in a competition. That recently. Wow, it's incredible, isn't it?
I didn't know that.
And the thing is, the music was actually scored. The composers did write percussion parts. It's just that when they got to the competition, the percussionists kind of stayed at home and You know, they weren't included at all. So you can understand why those viewpoints were formed over years, that percussion was just something that you just kind of bolted on as and when, you know, you had the luxury of a player available. But these days now, I mean, we do like the most prestigious competitions all over the world, playing the set test pieces, which are set for all of these occasions. Every band plays the same piece, and most of the pieces are now written for a minimum of 5 percussionists, probably 4 or 5, or sometimes even more percussionists, and a whole plethora of instruments. I mean, you literally couldn't conceive of a brass band playing one of these current test pieces without percussion. It just wouldn't be possible to play the piece. It would fall down.
Yeah, and it just adds so much more texture and color, and you know, some of the instruments you mentioned before, you know, bowed crotales and things like that. You know, it just adds such. Obviously, I'm a drummer and a percussionist, and well, I'm more of a drummer actually. Maybe I shouldn't call myself a percussionist, but it does add those extra colours, doesn't it? It's an amazing thing to have, and it adds so much excitement. I mean, I'm lucky enough to have seen the Cory Band in the flesh several times, and it just lifts it a little bit more, doesn't it? And gives it, you know, it's just incredible.
Yes, exactly right. And of course, I think, as a medium to compose for, it's quite intriguing in the world of brass bands, because essentially you've got an ensemble which can be very, very homogenous, in as much as the brass are all one kind of family of instruments. So if you want to, as a composer, you can make it sound very blended. However, there are composers who think it's actually quite limiting just writing for that one family of instruments. But it really isn't the case, particularly now you've added percussion in the last few decades. But, you know, things like use of mutes within the brass players, you've got a whole plethora of different mutes that can give you different sound effects. And what I find really valuable as a composer is kind of combining the effects of the brass with some exotic mutes with the percussion simultaneously. And once you get into the swing of doing that, you'll find that the brass band, rather than having this limited palette, which some composers think it does have, if you use a bit of imagination, it can sound like a million different things. And that's, you know, of course, to a big part down to the role of the percussion.
Sure, it opens up a whole other world, doesn't it? Really, you know.
Yeah.
And I have to ask, are you? Obviously, I know you've got some guys in your percussion section who've been there for, you know, for a long time. Steve in particular. Are you happier to have everyone on their preferred instrument, like a tune player, and are you happy to let them swap around, or do you get? I'd imagine you get used to a certain kit player as well, and you get used to each other.
Yeah. That's generally how we do it at Cory. Is Steve will play the kit, Ali will play the timps. But I mean, Ali's a really good all rounder who can do anything really. So sometimes he's untuned, and sometimes he's doing auxiliary with congas and, you know, all of that kind of stuff. And then we have 2 other people who are mainly more proficient on the tuned instruments. So they'll stick to those and fill in with auxiliary wherever else required as well.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. Now, I'd like to talk, if it's okay, but I mean, I'm sure you've done lots of things with youth bands over the years, and it's important to have young players coming through, both brass and percussion. Obviously, a lot of the drummers want to go down the rock route, they want to be famous and what have you. But as we've already talked about with Steve and Ali, you know, brass bands open up so many doors that other ensembles perhaps don't, you know, playing in prestigious venues, going on tour, doing this, what have you, this and the other. Do you feel there's enough percussionists coming through at the moment, especially on the tune side of things?
Well, probably no is the answer to that, to be perfectly honest with you. And we find the same really with trombonists and tuba players, because, you know, for a young trombonist, tuba player, or percussion, as you've just highlighted, you've got so many different options available to you as to what kind of route of music making you go down. And of course, you know, you can join as many ensembles as you want, but there are only 7 days in a week. So, but, you know, for evening rehearsals and what have you, there is a bit of a practical issue. It's slightly different for us for the tenor horn players or the cornet players, you know, or even to a lesser extent the euphonium players as well. They're kind of main group that they would want to join would be a brass band. But yeah, percussion do fall into that other category. Was we have to work hard to attract the percussionists and the tubists and the trombone players to the brass band, because they can go orchestra, they can go big band, they could go wind band. There's so many different options for them. But yeah, I mean, you're right about brass bands. I think it's pretty easy to sell membership of a brass band from a musical point of view. There's so much variety. There really is. I mean, you come to the average Cory rehearsal, it'll be the same for any band rehearsal. And 1 minute we're playing, an original brass band piece. The next minute we're doing some pop and rock. Then we're doing some jazz, and then we're doing a classical arrangement or something like that. The variety is just second to none, really.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's good. That's good. And that's the way it should be as well. That's the way it should be, definitely. And obviously, I want to go back to the youth band thing. And obviously, lots of young youth bands or maybe bands in the lower tiers, they don't have the instruments that, that perhaps have been written for. Might ask for vibraphone or marimba. And I certainly don't know many fourth, third section bands who have them. Is it ever all right to leave parts out? Because I'd feel so sorry for a youngster to have to, the first time they play the instrument on the contest stage, that must be terrifying. Is it ever all right to leave something out, or what's your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think I have to go back to the word practicality, really. I mean, at Cory, we're a finely honed kind of machine. We've got a van which we load up virtually every week with all the percussion we need, and fill the van with fuel and take it to the concert venue, and people unload the van and load the van. But at some bands, they're just not used to doing that. They don't have the transport required to move these instruments around from people's homes where they might want to rehearse it to the band room, etc. Vibraphone parts often go on to glockenspiel, for example, it's just simply because it's more portable and it's more storable from that practical point of view. I would always encourage even a lower section band to try and get the sounds the composer has asked for, though. Even if it might take a bit of extra effort, maybe to borrow a car from a friend, a car whose seats go down, for example. It'll be practical things like that, but you can see what happens if a third or fourth section test piece comes out and there's a tubular bell part. You can see why people play it on glockenspiel. I mean, with the tubular bells, you can't fit it in a car. You need a van for that. Glockenspiel can just go behind the passenger seat.
Well, absolutely. And do you find that percussion is mentioned more in adjudication these days than it used to be? Because it used to be kind of ignored a little bit, didn't it, by adjudicators? And now, has it changed?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say this anymore, but some years ago I would say to any percussionist, look, if you can get to the end of an adjudicator's remark sheet and the judge hasn't mentioned you at all, you need to take that as a major win. but I'm not sure that's the case anymore. In fact, some judges seem to go out of their way to mention percussion. In fact, we did a contest within the last year where there wasn't actually much for percussion to do. It was an older piece, actually, which is, that's a different subject in itself about, what approach do you take to older pieces. But we did have this older piece set, and at one point one of our percussionists had to stand up and play one note on the triangle, which was I think even perhaps I could have done that, but the judge did say brilliant triangle or something like that, which was a little bit kind of OTT, I think. But no, I do think most good judges these days will have an ear for percussion as much as they do for any of the brass.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's good to hear, because times are moving on, and some of the old guard might not like it, but it's here to stay. It's not going anywhere, and
sure.
It's getting more and more involved, isn't it, with every year with composers like yourself, obviously, writing for different instruments, and yeah, it's really good. Now, there's one thing that we spoke about which fascinated me. And again, forgive me, I can't remember the name of the test piece, but Steve and Ali mentioned that they had a pre-sectional rehearsal with you once, and I love that. I mean, obviously, sectional rehearsals, for anybody who's perhaps not familiar, is when the percussion section or a particular brass section would get together. Am I right? Just to go through the finer detail.
Exactly that. I mean, the contests we do are at a very, very high level, and the only way that you'll kind of get the detail into the performance that you really need to do well in these contests is to break down the band into the constituent sections. So we do 2 or 3 hours per test piece per section, really, every time.
But Steve said, I think it was Steve, and he said that before the actual sectional rehearsal, they had you had a pre-sectional where you discussed like approach and sounds. I love that. That's something I've never come across before, and I think the fact that you go into that detail is incredible.
I think the point of the sectionals really is that, as I say to the brass players, you don't come to the sectionals and expect me to tell you how the part goes. You need to come to the sectionals with your part almost perfected, and we'll just kind of knit it all together as a section. But with percussion, obviously, we can say that. But if we need a particular sound and the percussionists don't have the right sticks with them, or we haven't got the right cymbals out of the cupboard or something like that, then it's just time is of the essence with these things. So we don't want to waste any time, which is why the percussion, and they're not the only section to do pre-sectional sectionals. Actually, some of the brass players do that as well. But that is a thing. But that just shows you how much they care about it, really.
Oh, hey, and yourself, of course. And let's be honest, this is why you've had such incredible success over the years, and you've been the #1 ranked band in the world for I don't know how long, as long as I can remember. So it's an incredible achievement. And whenever I've seen Cory and I have this thing in my head that it sounds like that the first time you come to rehearse it. Does it? Because you just imagine that it's always sounded like that, and it's just instantly amazing, on the first rehearsal.
Yes, a lot of people. I've heard a lot of people say that, actually. Yeah. Oh, it's really easy for you because it must sound brilliant straight away. I can absolutely assure you it does not. I mean, obviously every player in the band is brilliant, so it'll sound better than a lot of bands. But I guess that's where my role comes in, really, is having the kind of overall vision of how I want the final performance to sound. The players think of it from the technical point of view. They have to, really. I mean, what I do as a conductor is technically very simple, literally just waving my arms around. That's it. Any fool could do that. The players need to come up with, they need to deliver something highly technical, highly polished, highly practiced. So everyone's kind of looking to get on top of that. There's a good culture of people being prepared in Cory, so that's why it maybe sounds better than some other bands to start with, because people will already have practiced their parts before we bring it to the band room. But no, it then goes on a journey, and then my job is to kind of bring the whole band, brass and percussion, together so that at the end of the journey it sounds like I imagined it could sound like right from that very first rehearsal. Sometimes that's a bit frustrating for the conductor if they have got a vision in their head to come to that first rehearsal and find there are so many technical problems to kind of solve. But that's the order things need to be done in.
Absolutely. Well, look, Phil, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you. It really has. And thank you for your time and all the very best for this year. I'm sure you've got lots of contests coming up. So let's hope we see you in first place in a few of them, or all of them even. It's happened before, hasn't it? So
yeah, well, we definitely do our best. And thank you very much for your interest and support.
Absolute pleasure. Thanks, Phil.
Okay, thanks.
So there we go. Many thanks, Phil, for your fabulous contribution to this percussion discussion. Gentlemen, back with you. We're nearly at the end now, and it's been a fantastic conversation. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. But before we go, I want to ask you, what are your favourite moments of playing with the Cory Band? Ali, do you want to go first?
Yeah, I mean, obviously winning contests are great, aren't they? I mean, two stick out for me. I think the national finals 2019, the Albert Hall, the piece of music, Titan's Progress, really, really challenging timp part. One of those where I think I came off stage and genuinely, didn't think I could play that any better. That was great. We won. I think the tour to South Korea this year, that's gonna stick in my mind for for many years. You don't get the opportunity to do that.
Is this the very sweaty tour?
Yeah, so Jeju Island, and then we went to Seoul, which is just an unbelievable city. Yeah, I think that probably those two things. There's so many. There are so many, but yeah, on the spot.
Yeah. How about you,
those
Steve?
two?
Well, aside from all the contest stuff, which a lot of your friends or family, they can't really relate to that. So I think for my two things that stick out, one was we did a performance on, I think it was called Tonight at the London Palladium with Bradley Walsh.
Oh, wow.
A few years ago. So we were invited onto that. And that was I mean, I love showbiz, me. I love it. So to actually go and play at the Palladium for ITV was fantastic. Really, really good memory of that. Thinking, you just sat there thinking, well, who hasn't trod these boards,
Yeah.
So that was one thing. That was a fantastic experience. And I think the other one for me was actually this last year, so 2022, we did a concert at Symphony Hall. It was actually the gala concert of the European Brass Band Championships, and we did a gala concert before they announced the results. It was a collaboration between Cory Band and the Louis Dowdeswell Big Band, which is basically you said it, a group of session musicians, the top people, which was fantastic. I mean, if I'm to just say, Al, we actually rocked up in Watford for rehearsals for this. And I thought, well, I'm not going to be playing kit, so I'm very happy to play congas, shakers, maracas, whatever, tambourines. So we rocked up to the rehearsal rooms in Watford. And I remember we actually got there, and I could see Ali chatting to the drummer. And I kept looking, thinking, it can't be. It can't be him. It can't be him.
I know who it was.
And you know who it was. And so we just started chatting to him. And I'm thinking now, in my head, I was thinking, no, why would he be doing a brass band gig? It's not him. It's not him at all. Of course, it turns out it was Ian Thomas. So to actually sit and watch him in action close up, and then obviously do a concert with him alongside him as well was fantastic. I mean, I don't think we stopped talking about it for a week. Well, I certainly didn't.
No,
stopped talking about it for weeks. It was just immense, wasn't it? And the whole band was fantastic.
Yeah, he was just incredible. I mean, Steve's a great drummer.
He ran the show.
He's a great drummer. I mean, Ian Thomas, what a guy. I don't think I've sat on a stage with a better drummer. Absolutely immense, and such a nice guy as well.
He's like the international man of mystery. He doesn't have any Facebook, any social media presence, no web, but the amount of stuff he has done is insane. And I've been, I don't mind saying on here, I've pestered him on many occasions to do one of these, and the usual answer is when I'm a bit quieter. But a drummer like that, he's never quiet, never. But there must have been a great kind of mutual respect though between Cory Band and Louis Dowdeswell, because let's be honest, you're all at the top of your game there, aren't you? Let's be honest.
Oh yeah, I mean it was fantastic, wasn't it? I mean, to be fair, Philip brought that together with Louis. Calamao arranged all the music, top, composer and arranger. But yeah, I mean, they could tell we were good musicians, and we could tell they were good musicians. And as a result of that, the vibe was just brilliant. I hope we get to do it again. I think Louis' band loved doing it as well. Most of them are sat in pits doing shows, and so I think they loved it as well. But yeah, what a gig! I mean, that is actually available. You have to subscribe to watch it on, I think it's called wobplay.com. But yeah, that was just unreal.
Wow. Well, do you know what? You've achieved so many incredible things, as the unit that is the incredible Cory Band, and so much to be proud of. And I can't thank you enough for giving up your time. I hope it inspires some young drummers and percussionists to go down the brass band path. You don't have to do it forever, but it is a great grounding, isn't it? To be a good musician, from reading skills, from discipline, dynamics, it's all there. Everything you're going to need is in brass banding. If you do it properly.
Oh, without doubt. I mean, there are many top brass players in orchestras over the years that have started off in brass banding. Namely Maurice Murphy, who went on to go to the LSO. Of course, he's the one you hear. Is it Star Wars or Star Trek? I don't know. It was it Star Wars, isn't it? Yeah, he's the first with the fanfare, isn't he? So it is, like you just said, a very, very good grounding, and you get to learn all different styles of music, pretty much, and make a lot of friends as well. So that's the two biggest things about playing in brass bands.
Yeah,
superb. Well, look, gentlemen, honestly, thank you so much. Thanks also to Philip, who we heard from a little bit earlier on. I hope you've enjoyed this. I hope you've enjoyed the experience of being on Percussion Discussion. Definitely the first brass band percussion section I've had on, but this is what it's all about. You know, it's nice to hear about different genres, isn't it? So,
been a pleasure.
So look, good luck with 2023. I'm sure it's going to be a busy year for you all. So hopefully we'll be able to catch you soon. So thanks very much, gents. See you again.
Thank you, Matty.
Thanks very much, Matty.
Bye.
Thanks.